The most important thing I think to understand is that everything matters. That's important to understand, but the next important thing to understand is don't get overwhelmed.
Your next favorite podcast pick starts now. Here's the Professor and Heather Ann.
Welcome to
the Professor and Heather Ann.
Although we don't have all the answers, we hope to encourage and excite you. We're here sharing our lives to help you make the most of the second half of your life.
We have a fantastic episode today. It is about understanding your total stress load and how your home influences your health. What if your health journey isn't just about your diet and your supplements and exercise? What if it's about your home?
So our guest will share her experiences navigating her own health crisis while unknowingly living in a moldy home. And she began connecting the dots between environment and physiology, and so what started as functional nutrition evolved into something much deeper. So she'll explain why we can't fully heal in spaces that are stressing the nervous system every day.
So one of the things that we talk about is I grew up in a home full of trauma. So over the years, I have learned how that has played a lot in my health of the inflammation, the cortisol. We actually just got my labs back last month. And our nurse practitioner, when she looked at me and was like, your inflammation is like, her face was just like, is really high off the charts. So I know a lot of that has to do with just what my body has endured over the years and the stress level that I've had. But one of the things that we have been on a journey for is not just cleaning up our diet and exercising. Yoga has been a big thing for me and stress and everything. But I've really been working on cleaning up the environment in our home. So cleaning out the different cleaners that we use. I no longer use bleach in clothes in the laundry. I no longer use it to clean. I used to use it a lot when I would clean because I'd have to scrub everything, even with toothbrushes, to get the house clean. So I've seen a difference in our home. I've seen a difference in even the animals with the way we filter our water.
Double filter.
We double filter our water. Very mindful, because you don't think about it even with your pets. You don't think about the stuff, the things that you're using to clean your house, your floors, your countertops, even your showers and bathtubs and sinks and stuff, is that affects even our animals because they're carrying that around on their paws and then they're licking their paws.
Yes.
So that really helped me change my mindset about the chemicals that we're using and switching to non-chemical stuff. Are we perfect? No, but we're slowly getting there. And I think in today's world, more people are paying more attention to that. They want to have, not just be healthy, they're healthier themselves, but they want their home to be healthy. One of the things that we do is, and we'll be able to talk about with our next guest, is that we don't wear shoes in the house. That's a very big thing for me.
We demand of our guests that they take off their shoes.
And that was a thing for you to have to learn to not wear your shoes. And you even asked me, what's wrong with wearing your shoes in the house? Well, because you're bringing all that stuff from outside of your house into your house and contaminating your house with that. And again, especially if you have pets and children, that's being distributed through your house. So...
Right. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing our guests talk about this experience with mold. My first wife and I, in 2007, we bought a condo, And right after the closing, we discovered that there was extensive, undisclosed mold damage, which required $30,000 worth of remediation. They had to tear out the drywall and whatnot. And they told us that some of the mold was, I think I'm remembering this right, something called black mold, which is like some of the most toxic mold. So we don't have the experience of actually living there because it all got remediated before we moved in. But we had to face this tremendous hassle and financial and legal hassle of getting this straightened out. Then from a professional point of view, so I study evolutionary psychology, and of course stress is something that all animals, including human ancestors, have all had to deal with. There's a stress caused by hostile fellow humans. There's predators. There's illness and injury and lack of food and so forth. But those are all things which, to one extent or another, our ancestors became adapted to. What we face now are lots of novel, new kinds of stress that we're not so well adapted to, and that includes new kinds of toxins. It includes overcrowding. So you think about people living in an apartment building where they're encountering strangers every day, and so these are new kinds of stress, and so it's a question as to whether how we can deal with these things which we're not evolved to deal with.
And I think you've had to learn since we've been together on how having a calm and, for lack of better words, serene type home for myself, because that's where I recharge. That's where I need it to be a clean environment. I need it to be, organized and all of that in order for me to be able to come home and just relax from a stressful day, or be able to walk out of my home office and be able to relax. So you've had to learn some different things.
To be quiet.
Well, don't make a lot of noise, but also just about the cleaning and everything. That was
so. And I suppose I'm confident our guests will talk more about this. One source of stress is clutter. So and there's data showing that the more objects there are on the horizontal surfaces in a home, the more stressed people are.
Yes, with even your cupboards, and I know. For me, it's even opening drawers and cupboards and different things. And if they're a mess, then it just makes me very anxious. Or I jump in and just start cleaning things right then and there. Something my boys had to grow up with, that I've been known to occasionally wake up at 4:00 in the morning and start cleaning the house, because the environment that I needed to have around me in order to just even be able to function. And these are little quirks and things that you've had to learn about.
Yes.
So I am very excited to welcome our next guest. Holly Mullen and I met about a year ago, and if I may say, instantly became friends. We connected right away. Part of that, I'm sure, is because you are from California as well as the both of us. You are a wellness-focused realtor, a functioning health practitioner who helps people understand how their living environment directly impacts their nervous system, hormones, sleep, and long-term well-being. You host the Health Starts at Home podcast, currently studying building science and building biology. And you're on a mission to help people move from symptom chasing to symptom level healing. Welcome, Holly. So let's dive into that's a lot. So let's dive a little into that. I knew about the health practitioner, but now you've taken it another direction about our homes and our environments. What, we mentioned that you had an issue with mold. What made you start looking more at just homes and the environments that we have in our living spaces?
The transition from being a practitioner into real estate was actually inspired by a client, but it wasn't until I had my own experience where I was moving out of our home in California, and it was actually the home I grew up in. I moved back into my childhood home as an adult with my family. When we were moving out of that home to move here to Oklahoma, the new buyers were doing their buyer's inspection, and during that, it was discovered that there was all sorts of mold in the home. And at that time, all these dots started connecting. I started having all these light bulb moments of symptoms I've had my whole life making sense. And part of me felt really dumb for not even figuring it out sooner, especially coming from the health space. It's like, why? How did I not know this? But things like chronic sinusitis my whole life, mysterious rashes, eczema, psoriasis, neurological symptoms, mysterious weight gain, also crazy weight loss, but it's just very odd health symptoms my whole life. And they would come and go as I would come and go and move in and out of the home. And because I did move in and out a lot in my adult years after being a teenager. But then I also started putting together timelines of all the different rentals I've lived in. And in California, we live on the coast, the marine layer. There's a lot of moisture, humidity, and just moldy places. And so it was that moving experience and understanding moldy home environments and putting together my timeline of health symptoms that really made things click for me. And then knowing friends that I've had that have had their lives completely devastated by mold. I'm fortunate that that wasn't me, but I've watched my friends go through it. Then I fully understood the damage that mold can do, all the ways in which it can show up, whether it's subtle in things that we think are just normal health challenges
Having
and chronic
sinus
illnesses.
problems
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's just allergies. Oh, it's just,
rash.
oh, I just have sensitive skin. Things that we brush off that could really have a root cause to total devastation and debilitating health consequences. And so it was more of like a hindsight experience for me, but it was then also something that was able to help me to really be a better practitioner for my clients going forward also, because I could recognize things better from that point also.
So what about taking what you've learned now and taking it into the real estate field? This is something that, you know, I'm a mortgage lender. It is something that still isn't really talked about in our industry about having a healthy home. You purchase a home or you build a home and you have inspections and they run through this typical list. It's pages and pages, but that inspector's really not telling you certain things, or they're just, here's a list and they're just checking it off. What are kind of some of the things that people need to be looking specifically for when they're doing home inspections?
Well, that could be a very long answer. And really the best answer is it depends on the person and what's important to them. In your pre-conversation before we started talking, you guys hit on so many things, from trauma to like personal relationships to chemicals in the home to not wearing shoes to mold and pets and there are all these things that go into what makes a healthy home. So all that could be something, but it could also be where the location of the home is, whether it's near cell towers, or if you're in an apartment building, or if you're in condos and you're near a bunch of other people that can contribute to people stress, but also all those individual Wi-Fi routers that you're getting more exposure to other people's internet and non-native electromagnetic fields. If you're positioned near freeways or highways and you're getting more air pollution, that is more heavy metal exposure that you're getting in through your windows and your doors. And if you're not taking off your shoes, that's more heavy metals and pollution that you're bringing into your home. Golf courses, I know they're luxurious to live on, but they have high pesticide use, and that gets into the waterways up to 6 miles. There's all sorts of things that you can consider. So that's just the surroundings. And here in Oklahoma, we have a lot of oil production, so we have registered polluters and Superfund sites and brownfields. And
so this part of the state that we live in, Oklahoma, is broken up in, this is green country, this is that. I moved from Central California, which is heavy agriculture, and never had any problems. I came from an area where valley fever was a common thing. But never had any issues or anything with allergies or anything like that until I moved here. And it just took a couple of years, and all of a sudden I started having sinus problems and everything. So that's just proof your environment can make a huge difference for the way you feel as well.
Yes. So there's the location. There's all sorts of things to consider. When it comes to a home inspection, you can also look at the mechanics of a home. I think the biggest thing here when it comes to home inspections is the presence of mold. We do live in a humid climate here. There aren't a lot of regulations when it comes to building, when it comes to HVAC systems. Really, when it comes to anything, we are in the Wild West. So codes and regulations aren't really what they are in coming from a state like California, where everything is very highly regulated. And so it just kind of depends on what is important to the person who is looking for a home, and then how closely we are investigating things. So
is there much value to tests of the air inside a home for the presence of mold, or will that not tell you much? Do you actually have to go into the walls?
There's different things you can do, yes and no. So we do have some inspectors that will do an air test. However, not all air tests are created equal. So there's one where you can just come and they put a little thing in the middle of the room. They measure the air, they measure outside, and they compare mold spores in the air. Because we always have mold spores in it. So it's part of our environment. And then they compare, okay, what's outside and what's inside, and is that normal? The problem with that is mold spores are heavy. So when it's in the home, they're not normally just floating around. They settle in the dust. And not all mold is visible and just out floating in our air. It is hidden, it is in wall cavities, it is in the HVAC system. And so unless you're coming in and aggravating those things, unless you're fluffing up the carpet, unless you're turning on your oven exhaust and opening doors and creating airflow and vent suction to where you're pulling out air from your wall cavities, where in your living space, that is what you would have in a day-to-day experience. You would be getting that. You're not getting that just from someone putting a scope in the middle of your living room for a minute and getting that. But also what people are reacting to, let's say you do have a mold sensitivity and there is a hidden mold problem in a home, sometimes people aren't reacting to the mold itself, the mold spores, they're reacting to the mycotoxins, which is what mold spores are putting off. And so the short answer is they're not always accurate. An air test. They do have other types of air testing that are more sensitive, that would tell exactly what kind of particulates are in the air and stuff. But that is a much longer process. It can be more invasive with like a boroscope. You're going into the walls, and I've been to those inspections. They take hours because they're going through every part of the home.
And now, because one of the things that you're starting to talk about is there is here in Oklahoma, which there more than likely is in other states, and we know more than likely in California, they have mold dogs.
Yes.
So these dogs are trained to detect mold.
Yep.
So if it's in the floors or in your heat and air unit, in the walls and everything, they're able to, I guess like drug sniffing dogs.
Exactly.
Be able to go and be like, okay, right here, there's something right here. So I know a lot of people are going to think, oh, this is, new age. We're just trying to make up things and, come up with more inspections for homeowners and different things like that. But as a whole, we're all starting to become more aware.
Yes.
Let's face it, if we were having this conversation 10 years ago, maybe not in California, but here in Oklahoma, people would just kind of roll their eyes. Why should people be more aware of what's in their home?
I think because we're not getting any healthier. I think we're more and more bombarded by things in our environments that are making us sick, and more people are looking for answers and reasons. And I think the more we know, the more empowered we can be. And the truth is, probably most homes do have mold. Like, mold is a part of our life, but it does not affect all of us the same or equally. And most people, it probably doesn't bother a lot of people. Or a lot of people are probably like me growing up, and they just have all these symptoms and don't have anything to attribute it to. But to the people that are devastatingly ill, it matters. And I think it matters to our kids. It matters to the future of people growing up.
Our overall health.
It matters to our overall health. It does.
We had an incident where we had a new house built, my ex and I, and we moved in and everything was great, and we did our inspections and everything, and we were there on site, making sure things were built correctly. There are some things we had them correct, different things like that. But it took a year, well over a year, that I started noticing, I was fortunate I didn't have a lot of problems with acne and stuff growing up, or even during pregnancies or anything like that. But it's like all of a sudden my face was breaking out. And it was like, okay, maybe it's the washing machine and it's not rinsing the clothing correctly and everything. So we get a new washing machine. Well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. What it wound up being was the water. So everything improved and literally went away. My dry skin, my whole life, same thing. I've been sensitive. I have sensitive skin. I have to be careful what I put on it. But no matter what I was doing, I was just having reaction after reaction. We wound up getting the whole house filterization for the home, and my skin cleared up. Everything was fine. We lived in a small town here in Oklahoma, and after we installed the system, they started having, you have to boil your water. We have this. We started noticing there was more issues with the water. But the thing that really fascinated me, that I tell a lot of people about, was we had 2 cats and a dog at the time. And one morning I got up, and they were like standing at the water bowl that just had fresh water put into it. And they were lined up, waiting to drink that water.
The clean water?
The clean water. And this was just like days after having the system and everything like that. And I just stood there, and the little cat got hers, and the dog just waited patiently for the cats. But it was the cutest thing. And I'm just going, oh my gosh. And I started noticing they're drinking more, not excessively drinking, but they were drinking the water a lot more. And so the impact it can have, just having clean water, can change your health.
Yeah.
What are some other things that in your practice and the things that you're learning about healthy homes that you could share with our listeners?
Actually, can we stay on water for a little bit? Because water is actually really good, because most people think water is safe and clean, because if you live in the United States, you live somewhere where you have water treatment, and our water is cleaned and we can drink from the faucet. It's not like
wash our clothes.
We live in a country where we are conditioned to believe that if it's coming from our faucet and our sinks, then we are safe and clean. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but there is nuance. There's nuance to everything. Our water treatment, and it depends on where you are, because every municipality uses different chemical treatments and things. But let's just say, like, chlorine is one thing that we use to clean water. You're taking a hot shower, you're getting all the chemicals and all the treatments that they're using to make this clean water. All that is becoming, let's say you're taking a hot, steamy shower, that is now becoming vaporized. So you are essentially freebasing now pharmaceutical drugs, all the other drugs that are put into our water that do not get filtered out. Like, you're getting the chemical treatments, but you're also getting things that don't get filtered out of our water. You're now inhaling that into your lungs. The chlorine, fluoride, the halogen type of drugs and chemicals, those directly compete with your thyroid hormones, your thyroid receptors. How many women do you know have thyroid problems? It could be linked to any number of things, but nobody thinks that it could be linked to tap water and just bathing in their regular water. And it's just because chemicals in our normal tap water is taking over your thyroid receptor sites, and your thyroid hormones cannot get to where they need to go because your water is combating with it.
Which then interrupts sleep, which interrupts cortisol, which interrupts your hormones and all different kind of factors.
Everything. There is a cascade effect to it. So it's like and that's just one thing. That's just water.
And then you combine that with the possibility of mold, the possibility of other environmental factors.
And you can have mold in your pipes. I had one client there, her water treatment system had all mold in it. Like, they had their whole house tested. She was having symptoms of mold exposure. They had their whole house tested. They couldn't find it anywhere. She's like, no, our house is clean. Like, we've tested, we've remediated, we can't find it anywhere. It was in the water filter. They were getting exposure drinking through their water. Notorious mold harboring spaces, your water from your refrigerator, that line that goes from your sink to your fridge, that is notorious for always harboring mold. So if you're not cleaning that, flushing that, filtering that, ice makers.
We stopped using the ice maker.
Yeah.
That's one of the things. We stopped using the ice maker.
Yeah, that's
We're moving to a rural home where we'll have well water. Now, I guess well water has its own problems, right?
Mm-hmm, but you can test it.
Yeah.
But again, you'll want to get a filter, your home filter. You still want to filter it.
In the building. So one of the things that I noticed in the last house that my ex and I built, we were one of the first ones, like, kind of on the street. So we were able to watch the other houses going up. And one of the things that's notorious with new builds that people don't think about is the builders get their lumber, they have it dropped off, and they could possibly have a rainstorm. And then it's sitting out there in the rain and the mud and all of that stuff for a couple of days, a couple of weeks. Then they take that wood and use that to build the home. And there was this one particular house that we walked into, and you could just see the mold on the wood. And it was just like, do these people even know? Are they going to realize that all that's going to be trapped into their walls once they come in and drywall that and paint it and make it all nice and pretty? What is your recommendation for clients that you're helping and they're looking to build a new house? How do they help remedy that and make sure that that doesn't happen to a house that they build?
It happens all the time. They even call it's just lumberyard mold. So clients who are building and want to make sure that they have clean lumber, they have certain clauses that we can write into the lumber delivery. And it's that when the lumber gets delivered, we have an inspection clause. So we can make sure we're notified once it's delivered. We have an inspection window to go and inspect that lumber, and we can reject it and get it swapped out. And then also there's certain parameters for storing the lumber on site. It has to be off the ground, so it can't just be like in the mud. It has to be elevated.
Yes,
Yeah, and then not just covered in tarp, so it's like sitting there getting all wet. It has to be a certain type of coverage. So yes, we want it covered, but not so tight that it's not breathing. Mm-hmm. And then if it is raining during the build and before it gets sealed, before the building envelope gets sealed, doing moisture testing to make sure it is properly dried out before
they're coming in and drywalling and sealing that lumber in to your walls.
Yes.
So I want to, at a certain point, I want to sort of zoom out and talk about, you talk about the whole view of health that we've had in society. But before zooming out, there's one more kind of stress I want to talk about, and that's noise. So we were visiting New York City last June, and it's very, very exciting. There's great entertainment and restaurants and whatnot. But we thought, I don't see how anyone lives here, because all night there are sirens and car horns and so forth. And so what can you say about the effects of noise on stress and how that can be?
So when you live in it, it just becomes part of the background, right? You don't notice it. It's the same for living next to an airport or living in a home where your parents fight all the time, or living in any kind of a stressful environment where you have to learn how to turn it off. That doesn't mean that it's not affecting you. So people living in loud, noisy cities, and it just becomes background noise, it might not bother them in the sense that they don't hear it, but that doesn't mean their body's not perceiving it.
I find it interesting about the noise. Number one, I thought you were going to... Because I have ADHD, and sometimes he's very noisy, and I have to be like, I need you to be quiet right now. I thought he was going to say something about that.
Don't put the dishes away.
That's a whole different topic. But I was... the sound is fascinating, and again, a whole other topic. I was making reservations. We're going to Chicago this summer, and I was making reservations for a hotel, and it was the first time I had ever seen soundproof walls for the hotel that I wound up making the reservation for. So in Chicago is a very noisy city as well. I don't think as noisy as New York, but it's a very noisy city as well.
Just more gunshots.
That's it. But I think that just goes along with now hotels are having to state in their advertisement, we have soundproof walls. So, if I was making a reservation at 2 different hotels and one, I would probably stay at the soundproof place because I want to make sure I sleep and everything. So it's the same thing in our homes. When you're building a home, there's more things that you can do to make it more soundproof by adding more insulation and different things. Because one of the things when you build a home that a lot of people don't realize, they insulate those outside walls. They do not necessarily insulate the inside walls. So there's not a lot of insulation between your bedroom and the living room, or there's not a lot of insulation between, for example, in the last house that I built, we requested that. And the builder was like, well, that's going to cost you extra money. Oh, okay, because here's the living room and the laundry room's right next door to it. I don't want to hear the laundry. Or here's the living room and the bedroom's right behind this wall. I want to be able to be in my bedroom and not hear my kids watching TV in the next room. So
Right.
Is that something that's becoming more aware of as well, is especially when you're building a home? And there are things you can do even if you have an older home to increase the insulation in your home. But is that something that you find that your clients are talking more about, and you're having more of this conversation with your clients?
Yeah, I just call it's more of a conscious build, right? There's building to code, and there's building to comfort, and there's building to a level of standards of living that people want. And it's not luxury anymore. It is more of this, no, I want this certain quality of life, and I want this certain quality of living that isn't just the basic, I'm doing this to code and this is the bare minimum. Mm-hmm. It's a raising the bar on the expectations. But kind of going back to what you said about the noise and like that stress, I just kind of want to touch on that a little bit. But there's these interesting studies that you might find, and I don't know, I can't quote them off the top of my head, but if you take someone that is used to living in a stressful environment where there is noise stress or just a stressful environment and take them out, when that stress is the baseline, and they're now in a new environment, they have trouble adapting. So they kind of go and create their own stress. So it's like when they go from stress to calm, they don't do well in calm. So you'll find that people that then create their own chaos because they can't function in the calm.
Remember in the film Annie Hall, or the Woody Allen character.
Oh,
so
I don't think I've seen that.
So, he lives in New York, but then he's out in some rural part of New England. And he says, "Yeah, it's too quiet here. I can't sleep."
And I actually had that problem when we first moved from California, and we moved from Central California, where I lived in Los Angeles for quite a few years. But, I came from a smaller town. But even when we moved here to Tulsa, it was just like, it's too quiet. I can't sleep because it's too quiet. And then we've moved out to more rural Oklahoma, and it's the same thing. And I'm actually a little worried because now we're moving even more rural.
Very quiet.
We will not have any houses next door to us or anything like that. And it's a very quiet road that we're going to be living on. So I find it interesting to bring that, because it's like, am I going to be able to sleep because it's going to be too quiet?
Yeah, like parents putting on like white noise or sound machines for babies so they're not easily woken. It's like that's just setting the standards for creating low-level stress.
I didn't think about that. I used to be able to vacuum when my older son was asleep. I could go vacuum in the house. It didn't bother him or anything. I thought that was pretty cool, but now I look back at it going, that was not good at all.
And it can be, but not when that's like the constant. It's
Correct.
like, okay, that's fine if the vacuum's turning on once in a while, but if you have to have a noise machine on, if you have to have the TV on to be able to sleep,
then you've got some
if you-
underlying
then I'll be
issues.
calling myself out here. If you're a procrastinator, if you have to wait till the last minute to get things done because you can only complete a task when you feel that stress, it's like that's a trauma response because you grew up in an environment where you only feel that stress and you need that to get things done.
Yeah.
That's like, that could be a whole other conversation. But anyways, we're derailing.
I can
Okay.
I can confess to that too. It's
Yes.
the same thing for me. If you give me weeks to do it, it'll be like, yeah, I'll get it done. But if it's like this has to be done,
It's
like
because
in an
your
hour.
body
Yes.
knows stress,
and I can
and that's
get it
where the
done.
comfort is.
Very much so.
So
Yes.
now we can zoom out. So, and I just want to start this with just a little anecdote about myself, where this is, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years ago. I had this itchy rashes, all over, and I went to a doctor and explained this, and he asked a couple questions, but the obvious, the sort of the go-to thing, the doctor said, okay, we'll give you some steroids. Because you have this inflammation, that'll cut down the inflammation. And so, I went through the whole course of steroids, and then, of course, the itching came right back. And so, but I think, this is sort of emblematic of, what the standard American, well, maybe not just Americans, probably throughout the developed world, medical model is, So you got some symptom, we'll give you a drug for it. And so I want to know if you could say a little bit about how sort of growing skepticism that people have of that model of medical care, and what is a better alternative?
Yeah, I think our healthcare system isn't wrong. I think it's really good for acute care like that, right? It cleared up your rash.
Well,
right?
but it turned out it was an artificial sweetener, Splenda. I did some research online, and there's a small percentage of people who are sensitive to this. And after I cut out the Splenda, then it went away.
Okay.
But of course, the doctor had no role in me. I had to come up with that myself on the internet.
Okay.
So I think what it is that, yes, we're not here to knock our medical establishment or anything. It's great when we need it, and we need our doctors and everything. But I think, from our ancestors, from our, our grandparents on, they always looked for what's the cause, what's alternative, how can we clear this up? And I just think we've become so complacent to going to the doctor, here it is, clear it up, but not finding out, not asking the questions. Even your doctor's not asking you questions. And I think people are finally just like, wait a minute, hold on.
Yeah.
What really is causing this? How can I get, is it something in my environment? Is it something I'm eating? Is it something in my home that's causing these issues?
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of flaws with our system. Yes, it's great in saying, I have this problem. Okay, here's this, we can fix it. But the problem is the way things are set up, where doctors don't have time with people, right? Because people do want to come in, say, this is my problem, and get a solution and leave. A lot of people don't want to sit down and run through their entire health history and fix it. Doctors don't have time to do that. Our doctors are set up so that they're so specialized, they know one system and not the other system. But the problem is our body is not just a collection of systems. It's all one, and it all works together, and one thing doesn't work in isolation.
And our bodies change.
Our bodies change.
We're babies and children, and we go through puberty and our hormones, and then, especially for women, where we're finally talking about women's health and how we've been neglected for years and years.
Yes.
Women my age, not necessarily your age, but women my age are finally like, enough is enough. I want to know why I'm feeling this way. I want to know how I can feel better. And I'm tired, literally and figuratively, of feeling this way. I'm not sleeping, and I'm tired of just feeling horrible all the time. What are some takeaways that we can give our listeners to help them improve their health, their environment right now, today? What are some things that, as a health practitioner, as a real estate agent that's taking this into your business and helping your clients, what are some things that information we can give our listeners to?
I think the most important thing I think to understand is that everything matters. That's important to understand. But the next important thing to understand is don't get overwhelmed, because
It's easy.
those two things go hand in hand.
Yes.
It's like once you realize that everything from the water in your shower to the air in your home to also, yes, the food that you eat and the thoughts that you're thinking are all playing a part in your health, it is powerful and also very overwhelming. So a lot of times the first thing people do is freak out and do nothing.
Because it's overwhelming.
It
because
is.
I will say personally for us, once you start reading those labels,
Yes.
it becomes almost where you're just frozen, because it's like, okay, so now I have to spend more money to get these things out of my home. But what are the right things? Because you read this, you read that, and everything else in between. For us, it really did. I had already started on the chemicals and stuff for a couple of years, but really just even the food. I went to Trader Joe's and picked up something, hummus, and was like, well, what are these other ingredients in this hummus? Okay, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to put that back. Let me read this label over here. Oh, it says chickpeas and olive oil and salt and pepper. Okay, I'm going to eat this. So it's the same even with laundry detergent and all of that stuff. What are just how can we not be frozen? What are some tips that we can give listeners that don't become overwhelmed? Just do one thing at a time.
And that is the best thing, is the one thing at a time. And what I would do with clients, because this is what I did for years. It's people exactly like this, where they're saying, I need to make changes. I don't know what to do, and I don't know where to start. Everything's going to kill me, so why bother? Mm-hmm. Right? And so many people have that mindset of why bother, because it's too overwhelming. So if you can just start with one meal, it doesn't have to be your whole entire pantry. It doesn't have to be your whole life. You can start with one meal. And if you like breakfast the best, if you like dinner the best, if you like lunch the best, I don't care. Pick one meal and make that the healthiest meal you can. Or if you want to start with water, make the water in your home the best water it can be. Choose one thing and start there. When it comes to products in your home, the easiest and best thing to do is, as soon as you run out of one thing, don't replace it with that same toxic thing. Just make a swap. You don't have to go and get rid of everything
all of the
and
things that you already have.
Yeah, just
do it one at a
replace
time.
one thing at a time. Or if you want to just do one bulk shopping thing, replace the things that you use every day. The things that you're putting on your skin every day or using most common every day, your laundry detergent, your dish soap, your hand soap, your body lotion, our personal care products, the things that we are coming into contact with every day, those impact your hormones, your weight, your mood, more than what you're eating.
Correct.
And I wish more women understood that the chemicals that we come into contact with affect us more than the other things.
One of the things that we changed out about a year ago, believe it or not, was our toilet paper. So I was, not to get too personal, but I was noticing after a while, it's just like, man, this is something's going on. I don't know what it is. And yes, I'm postmenopausal and all that stuff. So that's a whole, we've already talked about that. But I just started doing research and everything. And if you read what's in our toilet paper even, and that is, touching the most private parts of yourself, We switched to bamboo toilet paper. And at first I think you were just kind of like, okay, let's try it. And symptoms went away. Never had any problems, or I haven't had any problems or anything since. So even just something simple like that, you're just changing out your toilet paper for your family, it can make a huge difference for your health.
And it is, small changes can make the biggest difference. And I think that is one thing a lot of people don't realize, is that little changes can be significant. They seem insignificant, but they truly can be significant. I had a client once, it was a gentleman, an older gentleman, and he came to me because he had high cholesterol. Oh, this is kind of goes to one thing about our medical system. A lot of times doctors are just looking at labs and just looking at numbers, and they only want to just address the numbers instead of saying, why do you have high cholesterol? So anyways, they wanted to put him on drugs. He did not want to take statins. He's like, let me try to address this with diet. So cholesterol, we actually need cholesterol. Cholesterol is good for us. We need it for our brains. We need it for hormones. It's great. When it's high, it's usually a protective mechanism. The body's trying to protect us from oxidative stress, toxins, pollutions. Something's going on in the body. Anyways, this gentleman came to me. All we did was make a simple change in his diet. He was a delivery man. He delivered bread to bakeries. And he would sample his product a lot. All we did was cut back on how much he was sampling. And so he didn't have to give up carbs. No one wants to give up bread. But he cut back, and he lost a good amount of weight, like 20 or 30 pounds within 3 months. And his cholesterol dropped so much just by cutting down his inflammation, regulating his blood sugar, losing weight. He went down in cholesterol. So that's just an example of one small change. One small change.
And that's exactly what happened to me. Was I was going through a lot of stress, and my doctor's like, your blood pressure is starting to get up. We probably need to put you on medication. And I'm like, I'm not going on medication. Let's find out the reason. I have a very extremely high stress business. My marriage is failing. Give me some time. Just give me 3 months. Started going to yoga, going to the gym, working out more, and came back, and he was like, wow, that just seemed, we don't have to put you on any medication. So that one little change made a difference for me going on medication and not. But I do want to address that. I think that, especially for us, that one little small change that we made with the toilet paper, then with the chemicals, with changing our laundry detergent, to making more homemade stuff, to making our own coffee creamers at home instead of buying the things at the store that has all the chemicals and stuff in it. It just seems to snowball after a while, because you start realizing you're starting to feel better. Okay, if I made this one change, I changed the toilet paper. Now I changed the laundry detergent. Now we're reading labels. That I think it just kind of does start to snowball for you when the more you start feeling better, the more changes that you do want to take. So yes. I agree 100% that one small change can make a huge difference.
Yeah. And if it makes a difference for you as an adult, like I just want to talk to people who might have young kids, right? As adults, we start having symptoms, ailments, illnesses. But if we have the opportunity now to maybe prevent our children from growing up and having those things, because if we can start making changes now and eliminating their exposure as kids, think of our children as little buckets, right? And we're in our homes and we're choosing all these products, and instead of choosing products and chemicals or products that are full of chemicals, we're choosing products with less chemicals and food with less chemicals and building materials with less chemicals, then we're not filling up our kids' buckets as much. So by the time they're adults, they're not overflowing with body burden, and they're not having the same ailments that we're having as adults, to where they're now having to eliminate things and having to figure out how to make all these changes because they've already maybe grown up with it. So maybe just that
Small change could be a
perspective
generational thing.
Exactly. It's the ripple effect. And that, I mean, everyone wants to know, how do we change the world? How do we have a healthier future? That's how.
That one person at a time.
Yes.
You start with yourself, start with your family, and then you can take that out even further. Because then you have friends over to your house, and it's like, oh, well, what's this product? What's this? Or what's this that you're eating? Or how did you make this? Then you're able to share with more people, and they're able to make more change.
Yeah. And our kids, our pets, we got a great example in the beginning when you're talking about our pets. Our pets, our small kids, they interact with their environments different than we do as adults. Our pets are walking around, they're licking their feet. So are our kids. And they even absorb things more rapidly. Their bodies and their heart rates, they breathe faster, their hearts pump more. So they're taking things in more, they're pumping it through their bodies faster, they're interacting with their environments more thoroughly than we are. So we mop the floor, we wipe the counters, we're not running around all over the floors like kids are. So they're getting more exposure. And so it matters more.
Holly, thank you. This is even another conversation that we can continue, because there's so much information out there. And I really think more and more people are really taking a look at their environment and how they can change, how they can make their homes healthier, how we can make ourselves healthier, definitely our children, and even our pets. We really appreciate you being here, sharing all your insight and experiences with us. For those listening, we will have a link of your information so that you can know more about Holly's background, her podcast, and our social media. We'll have all that information out there for you.
In the show notes, yes.
In the show notes, yes.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Coming. We appreciate it. So the biggest takeaway from today's episode is health isn't just about what you eat or work out. It's about where you live and sleep and how you recover. It's about your environment. It's about shifting from chasing symptoms to understanding our systems and how we can make those small changes. And just even making one change can make a world of difference for your health. So please subscribe and support our podcast. We have many more exciting discussions coming up, including guests. We can't wait to take you along for new episodes.
So join us here each week, my friends. You're sure to get a smile. From lessons learned to mishaps, the adventures go on for miles. Here on
The Professor and Heather Ann.
Thank you for listening to The Professor and Heather Ann.